what I want to talk about is why this is happening. Because if we're going to stop it, we have to understand why it's happening and who is responsible and what sort of pressure that needs to be exerted. And I agree very strongly with Jenny and Jess and Pauline that it's not too late. And I certainly think that if you don't fight, you lose. You might lose anyway, but if you don't fight, you will certainly lose. So what the government says is that it's about transport. It's not about transport. If it was about transport, they would have considered alternatives. But this government, since it came to power in 2011, has expressly excluded rail solutions to transport problems. There's a standing order for Cabinet that they do not want to receive submissions about rail solutions to transport problems. The only rail initiatives that this government has funded are the two metros, or is promising to fund other two metros. They will be private rail networks. They are not funding public rail, which is why we've got the mess that we've seen in the last few days. And always, WestConnex was going to be a private toll road. Always. It was conceived as a private toll road. What's being produced here is the right to collect tolls. The way they're doing that is by changing the M4 and constructing some new roads. And then that gives them something that they can sell to a purchaser. Who is that purchaser likely to be? There are currently two consortia bidding for WestConnex, and industry superfunds are the backbone of each of those consortia. So the one that's most likely to win, according to the press that's favoured, particularly today, a report by Jenny Wiggins in the Fin Review, is Transurban. The major shareholder in Transurban is UniSuper, my industry super fund. The other main source of capital in Australia for the Transurban bid is Australian Super, the largest industry super fund. Now, I was talking to a person on the weekend who has for 20 odd years been at the very senior levels of the superannuation industry in Australia, and that person also is a board member of one of the larger industry super funds. And that person said that one of the major problems they have is finding projects to invest in, because the projects need to have security. They're not venture capital. They can't put their industry funds members' capital at risk, and they have to try and get a good return. So I'll just read to you some extracts from the newsletter which I received as a member of UniSuper in the May update. And they were talking about three of their major investment options in the balanced option fund. And those companies that they've got long-term investments in are Transurban, Sydney Airport, and the APA Group, which delivers gas. We call them quote-unquote fortress assets because of their monopoly-like characteristics. If you're travelling on a toll road, flying to or from Sydney, or transporting gas in Australia's eastern states, at least one of the above companies is earning money. Winning WestConnex at a reasonable price would be a great outcome, in that it would underpin the growth profile of the company, Transurban, for a very long term. In addition to volume growth, all three companies, and the traffic usage of Transurban is going up by 2.7% in the March quarter. In addition to volume growth, all three companies have pricing power which protects against potential rises in inflation. They've celebrated the fact that they're monopolies and they can set their own prices. They have pricing power. And as you know, WestConnex, for the first 20 years of its 40 years operation under contract, is going to increase its tolls at 4% per annum, or the CPI, whichever is higher. The CPI is currently running at 1.9%. That is a 2% increase per annum for 20 years. That is pricing power. So, UniSuper is a not-for-profit industry super fund. But it is behaving like a gouging capitalist It's a robber baron. What they are interested in is getting monopoly control and maximum pricing power to secure the interests of their members. The other major bidder for WestConnex is being led by IFM Investors. IFM Investors is a funds management company owned by the industry super funds. There are 29 individual super funds, industry super funds, which own IFM. The chairperson of IFM is Gary Weaver. Gary was the Assistant Secretary of the ACTU. The Deputy Chair of IFM Investors is Greg Combay. Greg Combay was the President of the ACTU. Greg Combay was a Cabinet Minister in Labor governments. Greg Combay sat around the Cabinet table with Tanya Plibersek and Anthony Albanese. I've written to Greg Combay, setting out the various problems with WestConnex, and got back quite a friendly letter. Dear Chris, thanks for approaching us. I can assure you that if we are successful, we will engage with community stakeholders. He suggested we write to the ACTU, so we've contacted Sally McManus and we've written to Scott Connolly about their engagement with Australian Super. No response to date. Now, these funds are interested in monopoly control of assets. They have deep allies in the Labor Party. I'm not a member of a political party. I'm very supportive of Jenny and Pauline and Jess for the work that they're doing. I think the Greens have actually taken a very good stand on this issue, but I'm looking for solutions here. At a community meeting at Alexandria Town Hall about a month ago, which Tanya Plibersek called, and which was a fairly rough experience for her and Jodie Mackay and Max Thistlethwaite and Linda Scott, all Labor Party people who were there, because the crowd was deeply antagonistic to WestConnex. And at that I asked Tanya and all of them, because Combay and because Weaven are their people, they're probably personal friends, they've certainly sat around the cabinet table together, have they ever raised concerns about WestConnex or the role of industry super funds? And they didn't answer the question. At the end of the meeting, Tanya said she'd contact Greg Combay and talk to him about it. It's a month ago, I haven't heard anything. I just want to read to you what Anthony Albanese, who since Kevin Rudd became the leader of the Labor Party in December 2006, has been either the Minister for Infrastructure or the Shadow Minister for Infrastructure. And John Fain on Melbourne Radio, this is in 2015, was talking to him about some privatisation proposals in Melbourne. And Tony Abbott at that stage had floated the whole idea of asset recycling, of privatisation. So Fain says, and now the next thing they're saying is that they want to push privatisation of state assets as part of the funding package. Do you have consensus on that? And Albo says, well, you need to look at it on a case-by-case basis. With regard to the sale of the ports, that's something that does make sense from my perspective. Ports, by their very nature, are monopolies. You are guaranteeing a monopoly ownership and you are guaranteeing pricing power. Just ask the Port of Newcastle how they feel about the Port Botany operation, which is now majority owned by IFM Investors. There are 500,000 containers that go through Port Botany every year. Port of Newcastle is really trying to repurpose their activities there, get some employment going now that it's no longer a steel port, and also because coal is clearly a problem. If under the terms of the privatisation of the Port of Botany, if the container flow through the Port of Newcastle increases, it goes above 30,000 containers a year as compared to 500,000 at Port Botany, they have to pay a loading of $100 per container. So, absolute clear demonstration and proof that these industry super funds are on about monopoly control, they are on about suppression of competition, they are on about suppression of alternatives, and they have the active support of the Labor Party. They also have the active support, of course, of the Liberal Party, but the key thing is they have the active support of the Labor Party. And so if pressure is to be exerted, I think the coming months leading up to the elections at state level and federal level are a key time to bell the cat of whose benefit this is being done for. And as I said, we have to fight, and we have to fight hard. If you don't fight, you lose.